Welcome in to the Friday edition of the Slate. I'm Matt Lamarca, joined by my good pal, golf guru, Jeff Ulrich. Jeff, what's going on, man? How's it been?
Oh man, yeah, just little Good Friday action. Just a bunch of things going on. It's like a holiday up here. Um, Watching the Masters when some trees fell down. Been kind of an eventful little Friday here. I don't know.
Yeah, always sucks when we get bad weather at the
It,
Masters, right?
I
It's
mean, yeah. Now that
it's like
the
getting rain on the 4th of July. Not that you get that reference, you're Canadian, but all you want to do is celebrate, enjoy the spring is here, watch some golf, and
yeah,
nope, can't have that.
no, and the weather's even worse for tomorrow. So as we were saying before we were on air, I mean, now that like the craziness of seeing these trees fall, like the reality is setting in. We're probably not getting any more golf today, and then tomorrow, who the hell knows? This event could go on until like Tuesday. Um, I don't know. It is what it is. We got a bit of a runaway leader. Rom is kind of there, but now he's behind the eight ball because he's gonna be playing tomorrow. Not good for him because the conditions are gonna be terrible. Looks good for Brooks Koepka, but yeah, this event is I don't know. This could just be a get her done and get out of here at some point kind of event at this point. I don't know. We'll see. Someone's got to do something. Someone's got to make a charge, keep Brooks honest. But man, Jason Day falling behind the Jason Day was right there at the end of his round
Yep.
too to get in at 10 under. I don't know. Did you see that? Did you see how he ended his round?
He went like double bogey, 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 right?
It was even worse than that. He had a 6 foot putt for birdie on 14 to get to 10 under. Um, and then he missed that. So he's at 9 under. Had a 80-yard, basically a chip shot into the par 5 on 15, chunked it, like straight
Mm-hmm.
up chili dipped into the water, doubled that, and then bogey 2 holes coming in. He just fell apart, but he easily could have got in at like 11 under and been right there. So that was terrible. And now this. So yeah, Brooks is in the driver's seat, man. You either got a piece of him or you don't. If you don't, you're hoping someone does something miraculous or he falls apart, which could happen. Look,
Well,
we're in the
let's
seat with
talk
the
about it, right? Because
yeah,
we can bet now.
yes,
Over on the DraftKings Sportsbook, Brooks is one plus 140 still. And I think with him in the clubhouse and the weather being such an issue, that kind of feels like a value to me. Am I crazy, or like I kind of feel like we should be laying with Brooks, not necessarily getting plus money at this point.
I think that's a pretty strong take. I think the only reason why Brooks Koepka is even plus 140 and isn't like plus 100 or less is that the person chasing him is John Rahm. If it was pretty much anyone else, he would probably be plus 100. So I'm not, I don't need to do this because I have exposure to him in DFS and stuff like this. But like, yeah, I don't really know. Like Morikawa's back there, but he's 6 shots back. You're basically hoping if you're taking people behind him that he has a complete meltdown, or we get some kind of clear weather tomorrow morning and soft conditions where like maybe Hovland can get into it or Cam Young. But I mean, from like Hovland and Young are not like Brooks Koepka and John Rahm. They're not there yet. Anyways, maybe one day they'll be. But asking those guys to necessarily go out and get it, that's a lot, man. I mean, to me, the options right now it's pretty much Brooks versus Rahm. Maybe Morikawa makes a run. Maybe if something crazy happens, Spieth or Day could get in there. But I think it's a pretty solid take to say the plus 140 with Brooks is probably there's a little bit of value for sure.
Especially since he's got the full back nine to play,
Yep.
which if the conditions are tough, he can give some strokes back there. There are
Yeah.
some birdie opportunities on the par fives, but as we saw with Jason Day, if you're not, taking advantage of the par fives, it's very tough to score on the back nine of this course.
Yeah, absolutely. Rom's still got to play 11 and 12, which again, if it's early in the morning, like it's supposed to be like 48 degrees, 45 degrees tomorrow. So it's going to be cold, wet. Rom's starting on the toughest hole. Actually, I think he's still on 10. So he's got to finish off 10 and then play the toughest hole at like 7 a.m. in the morning in 48 degrees weather with probably rain. So right off the bat, I mean, that's impossible. Then he's got 12. Then he's got a couple, an easy stretch, 13 to 15. But again, if it's raining and it's cold, I don't like those may not even be birdie holes. He may just be getting out of there par. It's a bad spot. If he gets in at 9 under, that would probably be like considered good. So I it's hard to say John Rahm's going to have a chance to make up any ground tomorrow when he finishes his round. Take that a step further too. If they do, let's say they play the whole day tomorrow, Rahm's got to play 27 holes in a day. That it's just a tough spot. Like Brooks is probably winning.
If you were going to consider going with a longer shot, if you wanted to take a dip live somewhere on this board that isn't Koepka or Rahm, is there anyone that you think you could potentially place a little sprinkle on at this point?
It's probably Morikawa. Everyone else just feels too far back. I don't know if they have enough firepower. Spieth is interesting. He's played well. If the conditions get really bad, I mean, he is definitely someone who can put up low rounds in those kind of conditions. Jason Day to me, it's just such a poor finish. It's Spieth and Morikawa. Like I said, Hovland, I feel like maybe just used up all his magic beans in round one. He could certainly do it, but to me, like I would prefer Morikawa. He's already in the clubhouse at -6. If Brooks has just even the slightest setback, he can make up some ground. And then Spieth is just, again, really good poor weather player, knows the course. I don't know about going any further back than that, though. I mean, I just can't picture it. I mean, it's just with the conditions that are coming, I just don't know if the scoring's going to be there, especially with the two players we have at the front. I mean, if you're taking like an Adam Scott or like Hideki, I mean, you're asking like John Rahm and Brooks Koepka to just basically implode. That's a lot to ask. So to me, Morikawa and Spieth, that's where I would be landing.
So I don't hate Justin Thomas at 70-1. I don't hate Justin Thomas at 7. Probably a better option to maybe look at would be a top 5 or a top 10. But he's in a similar situation to Rahm where he's got the entire back 9 to play. He's at 2 under. And while it's not going to be easy by any stretch, as we just talked about with Rahm, like it might be a good thing if he just gets in at even par. But like JT can go as low as anybody on tour, right? So if anybody on this leaderboard right now is going to put up like a 63, 64 in one of the final rounds, my thought would be Justin Thomas of the group, just because we've seen him do it in the past, right? He won, what was it last year? The PGA, where he made a comeback of like 6 strokes on the final day.
Yeah, it was.
So, granted, he was chasing Mito Pereira as opposed to chasing Brooks Koepka and John Rahm. But if you open the door, JT has shown that he can fire through it. So I'd be looking maybe more plus 240 to top 10, plus 700 to top 5. It's going to take a lot for him to come back and actually win this tournament. But if you were looking for a longer shot, that's somebody I would potentially consider.
Yeah, and the nice thing about JT too is he's got holes, so maybe it clears up for maybe it starts poor, but maybe he gets like a clear shot to finish, and maybe he ends up with like a birdie streak, gets in at 5 or maybe even 6 if you get lucky. Again, like if you're taking someone down there, I would rather take a shot with a guy who's got holes left because he's got more room to gain ground. And you're right about Justin Thomas. He did. It was actually bigger than 6. I think he was down by like 9 strokes at one point early in the round. So we've seen him do it. He's not someone who quits out on the course, Justin Thomas. So I actually really like that call. Again, with the asterisks of saying this is very unlikely considering the leaders we have, because it's Rahm and Koepka. It's not Mito and like Zalatoris and like guys who have never competed in a major. So it's pretty unlikely, but yeah, if you're looking down there, I like the idea of looking at guys with holes left for sure.
Any final thoughts on the golf before we move on to some of the other stuff? Any thoughts on Tiger? Tiger's hanging out right around the cut line, right? It's going to be interesting to see how he finishes up.
Tiger is doing exactly what I thought he was going to do today. He's absolutely grinding to make the cut. This is what he came here to do. He didn't come here to be a ceremonial starter, man. He wants to play the weekend. I said this morning, I think, if you ask me, he's probably an underdog to make the cut, but I wouldn't bet against him. The same thing goes today. I mean, he's got 2 par 5s left. He's got an easy stretch, 13 to 15, and he's just got to play those final 3 holes probably in even par, and he'll get there. So, yeah, I think he'll do it. It's going to be super tough. It's going to depend on the conditions. If it's just junk, I mean, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. If they send him out there in like 20-mile-per-hour winds and freezing rain, no one's going to shoot under par. So, but again, he's put up the effort. Clearly, with Tiger Woods, limited to what we've seen before, even from a couple of years ago. So, sucks to see him like this, but maybe we'll get a better performance out of him at the end of the year at the Open or something.
And speaking of here to compete, shout out Freddie Couples. My man
Freddie.
shows up every year at Augusta and he just can still play. I definitely some course history and stuff like that goes into it. But when Fred Couples is at Augusta, the guy just gets the job done.
In terms of overall talent, Fred Couples is probably up there in like the top 5 golfers ever.
Wow.
Like Dustin Johnson is probably up there too. I mean, the guy it's just effortless power. I mean, you've seen him swing. I mean, it's just
Beautiful
like you don't even
swing.
understand how someone could look that smooth. Like we all hack, even some of the pros when they take a swing, it's just like we're convulsing at the ball basically. Fred Couples just up there. He's just going for a walk, and it's just like part of his natural routine, swinging the golf club. Like he was just born with it. I love watching Fred Couples just hit the ball, man. Like legitimately a complete artist out there, a savant basically. And that's, but the dude's like 60 and he's out here shooting like even par at Augusta. It's incredible, man. Like you said. So I always love seeing Couples up there. It's gonna be a sad day when he stops playing Augusta, but ain't today. So
yeah, hopefully he gets to be one of the ceremonial starters. At some point.
He's another. I mean, he should have had like 3 or 4 majors, but that's whatever. Like I said, doesn't take away from his overall talent.
All right, let's switch over to hoops. Big night in the association. There are 11 games to choose from. The amount of injuries, it just continues to get more and more insane. You've got teams. The Mavericks are the most shocking team to me tonight, right? Like they are in a win or go home situation.
Okay.
One more loss and they cannot make the playoffs. And yet they are resting guys. Guys are sitting for rest and injury management. Now, granted, they're playing a Bulls team that is also going to be without a bunch of players, right? They're sitting DeMar DeRozan. They're sitting Zach LaVine, Patrick Beverly. So the Mavericks still should win with just Luka Doncic, but the Mavericks shouldn't be in the position that they're in to begin with. So it's just kind of it's mind-boggling to me. But it's just it's a night where it's just so hard to get a feel. You see all the big spreads. You've got so many double-digit favorites because there are teams that are just playing their B, C, even D rosters in some situations. So the one thing that really kind of jumped out to me when looking at the sports book today is the total in the Knicks game. It's 223. They're playing a Pelicans team that has been really good defensively over the second half of the year. And the Pelicans are still playing for something, right? They can advance and get a guaranteed playoff spot in the West still. Right. They would need a lot of help in that situation, but they're live, right? The Knicks, meanwhile, they're clinched. They're locked into the number 5 seed. They're not going to have Julius Randle tonight. They're not going to have Jalen Brunson. RJ Barrett's questionable. Mitchell Robinson is out. So it's a depleted Knicks team. But I think that actually is a positive for the over. When the Knicks are playing their normal starters, their goal is to kind of just grind you out. But when they're playing the Isaiah Quickly lineup, he pushes the tempo a lot more than Brunson does at point guard. So like in their last game, they played the Pacers, and the two teams combined for more than 260 points. I'm not saying we get that tonight with the Pelicans, but I do think that this is a spot that should go over.
What about just playing the spread with the Pelicans then?
I mean,
It seems small
I'm
with all those guys you just mentioned. This seems like 7.5 seems really small.
I'm of a believer that teams that are like the Pelicans, whenever you have something to play for against a team that has nothing to play for,
The
they
pressure
tend to
thing.
get overvalued by the spread. Would it shock me if the Pelicans won this game by 20? No, but I do think that quickly when he is getting 40 minutes a night, like he will tonight, he's good, right? I mean, he's going to win the sixth man of the year award.
Right.
So
Wow.
he can keep the team afloat. I feel better about the over than I do about the spread. But yeah, I mean, the Pelicans should win this game. They're at home. They're
Yeah.
playing everybody, with the exception of Zion, who the most recent report is that if the Pelicans are in the play-in tournament, he will not play, which is just super unfortunate. But Brandon Ingram's been playing as well as anyone in the league at the moment. So
What has been the trend with these situations? Like, because I know in the NHL, there's the playoff teams like who are in the playoff hunt have just been racking up wins and like covering goal spreads like basically every night against the weaker teams of late, with the odd exception. But like Florida winning by like 6 goals last night, has that been kind of the trend in the NBA, or is the favorites been more kind of been tripping up?
So the thing is, like, I think in the NBA, it's such a night to night motivationally driven league. It's hard to say whether or not the favorites have been like taking care of business. I think that when you have a team that is actively tanking, betting against those teams has proven to be profitable historically.
Right.
Like a team that like the Hornets are trying to lose games, right? Even though they're locked into the fourth worst record, they can't improve in the lottery. They are just not even trying at this point. So like it feels weird, but I would probably lay the 4.5 with the Rockets because at least they're still playing their young guys.
Yeah.
Right. The Hornets, their best player for the last 5 games has been Svi Mikhailuk, who the casual NBA fan probably has no idea who that even is.
I don't know if the hardcore NBA fans know who that is. I mean,
So, um, yeah, when you're facing a tanking team, it's different than when you're facing a team like the Knicks, who are
yeah.
just resting guys. I think it's a little bit of a different dynamic.
And they're still good. And like you said, they have a deeper bench and stuff, right? So
Right.
yeah, like you said, it's a good point. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of hockey, let's bump on over to there. I know that hockey and basketball are basically on the same schedule. Is this the last week of NHL as well?
Yeah, pretty much like 4 regular season games left for most teams in that area. So
Okay.
yeah,
It
this
looks
is it.
like are there no games tonight?
Oh yeah, there is no games tonight. I just realized you're right. Cause yeah, good for it's like a packed slate tomorrow. Yes.
Yeah, it looks like a big old NHL slate tomorrow.
Yeah. I forgot they
Uh,
take Good Friday off. So yeah, I mean, we could
I'm
we could
not
look
going
at
to
the
throw you
futures
on
for
the
a second.
spot and ask you to look at games, but how about for the playoffs? Is
Yeah,
there
let's do
any
that.
team that you are thinking of as like a dark horse contender to win the Stanley Cup, right? Like the Bruins have
Yeah.
been great all year. I know they were on a record point pace at one point. I don't know if they're going to get there or not, but
Yeah.
they're the favorites. The Avs in the West, as much natural talent as anybody. Like, is there any team a little bit further down the board that you like to potentially be a factor? I know that here in New York, the Rangers are getting a ton of attention, and there are a
Yeah.
lot of people that think that they can go deep this year.
So let me break the futures down quickly. The biggest mover by far over the last month has been the Oilers, who I've been telling people who I told people to get on around. I did get on at plus 1,800, even at plus 1,400. They were on the DraftKings Sportsbook like 2 weeks ago, but they've won like 10 games in a row, and they may even win their division, although they're still behind the Golden Knights. That ship has sailed. Like at 800, they're just an overbet team. They're also popular because Connor McDavid's on there. They should honestly they're way overvalued. Like they shouldn't be third favorite at this point, but that's what it
Okay.
is. Either you got them or you didn't. Previously, I would have said go to the West, and I still like some teams in the West. I think both Dallas and Vegas are good. I would lean Dallas because they have better goaltending. Jake Ottinger has proven to be extremely solid this year. They have a really good top line. Miro Heiskanen on the back end. It's a pretty deep defense. I think that the Kings are sort of struggling at the wrong time. They're also dealing with injuries. The Wild, Kaprizov is out. I think that the Stars are probably where I would go. And the West is going to be more wide open too. Like I really like the Oilers' chances. Obviously the Avs, but the Avs have been up and down. They got a different goalie this year who's never been a starter, never played more than 50 games. The Oilers starters are, up and down too. I think the Stars have a real shot. And I think that like the West again is way more wide open where you could get a team like Dallas. Maybe they sweep their opening series. They just are going to be fresher. And I think they'll just have a better shot or a better value proposition than say betting the Rangers at plus 1,200. The Rangers, no matter what happens, are going to have a tough path because the East is just loaded. Like even the 8th seed, the Florida Panthers, it's probably going to be like Florida. That's an insanely tough matchup. I wouldn't be shocked if Florida beat the Bruins in round 1. It probably won't happen, but like Florida is a very, very tough draw. So I think you look to the West. I think Dallas is probably my favorite at this point. I may even add them before the playoffs start. And then the East is tough, man. Like I kind of prefer the Devils over the Rangers, but whoever wins that series, because it's probably going to be the Rangers and Devils, I think have at least a legit shot to give Boston a run. So I can't hate on the Rangers, but I do like the way that I do lean Devils just slightly if you're going to take a shot there.
I'm just saying, this team right here, they know a little thing or two about turning up in the postseason. Am I right, Jeff?
Yeah, they do. At some time, all good things come to an end, and Vasilevsky hasn't looked good this year. They're going to have a Toronto team that's got Ryan O'Reilly, that's got a little bit different goaltending this year. I think the Leafs probably. I'm not going to call for like a sweep or something, but I think the Leafs they break the Lightning this year. I think this is it. We don't see any run. We don't see any. It's a great team, the Lightning, but I think the Leafs are going to be too much for them this year in the first round. So they proved me wrong last year. Well, actually, I wasn't really against them outside of the first round. I actually took them over the Rangers, but yeah, I think the Leafs probably get it done in the first round.
All right. Any final NHL thoughts?
No, I mean like I said, I really hope we get a Bruins Panthers first round matchup, man. I think that would be hella interesting. If the Panthers get any goaltending in that series at all, holy cow, that could just be that has serious upset potential. But other than that, like I said, the Oilers ship has sailed. I would really be just looking at these Western Conference teams. I think the West is still just wide open, regardless of how the Oilers are playing now. There's still a team that, it's really only, they made one deep run. They don't have a ton of experience. So West is where I would lean for in terms of futures values.
What do you think? I mean, this is off topic completely, but like, what do you think about the way that they do the playoffs in NHL, right? Because you've got 4 divisions.
Yeah.
The top 3 teams in each division make the playoffs, and then there's 2 wild cards per conference. But
yeah,
to me, it kind of, I don't know. I don't like the fact that the number 2 and number 3 teams in each division have to play each other in the first round. That feels borderline unfair to me.
I hate it. I think it's stupid. Like I get that they're trying to create rivalries again and they're trying to get some matchups going, but it's basically like you said, like you could have 2 dominant teams and 2 dominant teams finish second and third. Like you could have basically the top 3 teams in a conference finish first, second, third in the same division. And then 2 of those teams are going to have to meet each other in the first round. Whereas, you could have worse teams in the other division getting rewarded basically for being worse, which makes no sense. No, they should just do it on points. The matchups will happen naturally. Like you can't, forcing this stuff is dumb. I mean, whenever a league tries to do that, I just feel like it doesn't work in their favor. I hate it as well.
All right. Glad it's not just me.
No, I mean, hey, it's a good question. I'm surprised you even know how the NHL format works. That's impressive. I mean,
only because I do some.
Not that I'm shocked. I mean, I know that you're.
I do some recap blurbs for the DK Live app. So, keep at least a passable hockey knowledge.
Matty Pucks, Matty Hockey. Yeah, that's great.
We've also got 5 baseball games tonight, technically 6 if you include this game between the A's and the Rays, but that's not on the DraftKings main slate for fantasy purposes. It is bettable, of course, on DraftKings Sportsbook, but for fantasy purposes, it's just these 5 starting at 7:20 or later. We have Coors Field on tap, which is always fun, but 2 teams that you don't necessarily associate with a ton of offense. You've got the Nationals and the traveling to Colorado taking on the Rockies, but I kind of like an under in that game. I always feel like early in the year, Coors is a little bit overvalued from an offensive perspective. I always say that Coors doesn't really become Coors until the summer, and it starts getting hot and the ball starts traveling around the ballpark. When we're still in early April, I don't think that Coors Field is really ready to like erupt on a nightly basis like it is in the summer. And I like Mackenzie Gore. I thought that he pitched very well in his first start against the Braves this season. Big time pedigree, was considered a top pitching prospect. He was part of the package that the Nationals got when they traded Juan Soto to the Padres.
Right. I knew recognize that name from somewhere, and that's okay.
So I kind of like an under here. You got to lay the 120 on 11.5, but I think that that's a little bit too high here today.
Is Jose Urbina there? Is he in their starting rotation, or is he just like a spot starter?
Yeah, no, he's a regular starter, and like most of the Rockies guys, he was basically BP at Coors Field last year.
Yeah.
I think his ERA was over 6 when he was pitching at home, but the Nationals are not the team that is going to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Their offense is just putrid. So, I think 11.5 is a little bit too high. I'm also looking if you want a side, I'm looking for a little bit of a bounce back spot here for Chris Bassett and the Toronto Blue Jays. Bassett got obliterated in his first game with the Jays. But he's been a reliable pitcher for like the past 4 or 5 years. He's had an ERA. It's typically in the mid 3s. Just because he started the year about as poorly as you could get, I don't think that that's necessarily a sign of things to come. I think he's going to be a roughly mid 3s ERA type of pitcher. And the Angels are off to a pretty good start, but they're still not a team that tears the cover off of the ball, right? They're sort of middle of the pack offensively against right-handed pitchers to start the year. They were subpar against right-handed pitchers last year. So I think that this is a decent little buy low spot here for Chris Bassett.
Do you feel like this may be the Angels season, like the year they finally do something with like Trout, or
I hope so.
Is this just like a hot start, do you think?
I bet the Angels over this offseason. When I was talking futures on here, that was one of my picks that I really liked. The only reason that number was as low as it was because they've been a perennially disappointing team, right? Mm-hmm. But the amount of talent that team has is top 10 in baseball easily. They've got plenty of talent on offense. And I think that the biggest difference is that this is the best their pitching staff has been. Right. Now, they've got to stay healthy, of course. That's always the big caveat. And both Mike Trout and, to a lesser extent, Shohei Ohtani, like, those guys aren't strangers to the IL. But I do think that there's some upside with the Angels right now. You can still get them at 17-1 to win the AL. That's only the 8th highest mark, right? Like, the Guardians are plus 900. For the life of me, that makes no sense. Right? Like, I like Cleveland. They've got some interesting young guys, and they do benefit from playing in a much easier division. But there's just so much more talent on the Angels.
You get plus 500 to win the AL West, too. That seems okay.
Yeah, especially since the Astros don't have Jose Altuve for at least the first couple of months of the year.
Yeah.
Who, despite the fact that he wasn't really in the MVP conversation last year, just because Judge and Otani were so dominant.
Yeah.
Last year was maybe the best year of his career. In terms of like WRC plus, which is adjusted for the environment, the year, right? He was
Yeah.
better than he was the season that he actually did win the MVP.
Okay. So
So
that's a pretty big loss.
missing
Yeah. No
Altuve is a
kidding.
big deal.
Yeah. No kidding.
And of course, they lost Justin Verlander as well. So
Yep. All right. Well, that's interesting. Keep an eye on that.
let's see what else we got cooking on the slate tonight. Um, the Braves have just been absolutely rolling everybody. I don't hate them at minus 120 against the Padres. Nick Martinez stinks. Um, Particularly he can't pitch to left-handed batters, and Matt Olson is just tearing the cover off the ball to start the season. In fact, let's see what Matt Olson is here to
Well, I was
hit a
going to
little
say, I
ding,
mean,
hit a little
let's
ding dong tonight.
let's get some home run props going.
Yeah, plus 320. That's pretty
Sure.
thin,
Yeah,
but um, you know who could be an interesting option? Eddie Rosario. He's kind of a similar type player,
right.
not nearly as much power as Olson, but he's a lefty. He can hit the ball far when he's facing a right-handed pitcher. I expect that he'll be in the lineup tonight with no Michael Harris, who just hit the IL for the Braves, last year's Rookie of the Year winner. So Eddie Rosario, I think he's got some decent odds there at 6-1.
Is Atlanta still a decent home run park? It was at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's crazy, but it's probably more of a hitter's park than it is a pitcher's park.
Yeah. Okay. Eddie Rosario, I like that. Good odds. Anyone else on the slate for home runs or
I haven't really dove into the home run props today. I mean, certainly at Coors Field, you can find a homer prop or two. But what might be interesting, one thing I noticed on the DFS side was all the players in that game are just stupid cheap.
Okay.
So if we go in, let me just pull up these lineups here if they're out. Yeah. So for the Nationals, you've got a $2,500 leadoff hitter at Coors.
Okay.
You've got a $2,900 number 2 hitter. You've got a $3,200 cleanup hitter, right? Like everybody on the Nationals is priced like they're still playing in Washington. It's bizarre. The Rockies too are pretty affordable for Colorado. I did say earlier that I like the under in this game, so I'm not necessarily expecting this to be like a 12-8 type of score, but it's just so cheap considering how good Coors Field has been historically.
Yeah, no kidding. That's usually the Coors guys obviously get bumped up, but some of that's obviously Washington just being terrible. Probably going to be, I don't even know. Like I mean, I obviously haven't been playing MLB DFS every day, but it feels like that would be a spot where Washington would probably be overowned, but certainly good value.
Yeah, I think that the Coors guys for sure are going to be just super popular today.
Yeah.
I kind of like the Braves as a pivot. They're expensive, and people just are not going to play them at the same clip that some of these other teams are going to be played.
So,
by the way, my man Eddie Rosario is in the lineup, hitting 6th. So
yeah, so there you go. I like that. Braves pivot off of potentially an under at Coors Field.
And the pitching is rough today. I think Brandon Woodruff's the guy if you're paying up. As great as Clayton Kershaw is, he's just not the same type of fantasy ace that he used to be. And I like Jared Schuster as a cheap guy. Another guy that did not pitch well in his debut, but it was his first start in the majors. I think he had to shake some nerves off. I expect him to be better. He had a sub-2 ERA over 20 innings in the spring. So I think this is a good bounce back spot for him.
Okay. I like it. Braves under. There you go, peeps. Well, Eddie Rosario action.
Little Rosario dong. All right. That's going to do it. I hope I didn't kill all the listeners out there with my hosting duties. we will have the much more handsome, much more talented guys back in this chair next week. Stick with us. We got the Eagles and the Texans coming up on the Madden stream before Mr. Ulrich. I am Matt LaMarca. We'll catch you guys later.